Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday meditation gathering. I'm so glad you're all here to share this time together. This week we have Neda Boin, who will lead us in meditation, and then we have 20 minutes of silence. After that, we'll open it up for sharing, and we end at 10:45. Over to you, Neda.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Morning. Happy to join with you again. Always feels, just very special to be with you guys and always enjoy it. So thank you for having me again. Yeah, I was thinking of what I wanted to share, and there's something that has been really helpful for me lately. And so it felt good to share that, and perhaps it can be helpful for you as well. And maybe it's something you've heard already so many times. I know I've heard this line from the Course so many times. And it's the line that all things work together for good. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows this line. All things work together for good. There's a beautiful line that comes after that says that it's true. I'm paraphrasing now, I don't know the exact words again, but like this is true there's no exceptions in this, only in the ego's judgments. Because I think that's the line that we tend to put away and forget, that yes, all things work together for good, but we always make exceptions, and we always think like, yes, all things work together for good, but not this, not that. I know probably I think my image is sticking a little bit. So even that works together for good. It's the best thing that could have happened this morning for the entire universe. But really and truly, to not make any exceptions with that, I think that is the important practice. And to really, it really goes hand in hand with trusting God. And if you really know that all things work together for good, then that's also like this 100% trust. And for me, it really helps with releasing myself and releasing others as well from guilt, which is ultimately also what Course in Miracles is really training us to do. That's the miracle, to release this guilt and remember that there's never any reason for guilt. That guilt is not created by God, and that's so it doesn't really exist. And so I would love to take you into like a tiny exercise with this before we go into the meditation. And then in the meditation, you can just sink a little bit deeper and see what else wants to come up. So if you can just close your eyes for a moment. And let's just breathe in and breathe out a couple of times. And just notice how you're sitting here and what's going on for you in this moment. And what thoughts, what feelings did you bring with you to this session? See if you can just fully allow yourself to be here exactly as you are. It doesn't have to be any way different. Remembering that all things work together for good. So whatever's going on for you in this moment, maybe even the way you slept, or maybe you ran out of coffee or something else happened this morning. All things work together for good. There's no exceptions except in the ego's judgments. So let's not hand this day over to the ego and have the ego decide how we're going to see and experience everything today. Let's hand this day over to God, to the Holy Spirit, and let Him decide for God for us. Let Him decide how we see things, how we hear things. And while we're at it, why not just hand over our entire lives into the hands of the Holy Spirit? Have everything, all past, all future, be interpreted by the one who knows only love. Why not? And really ask yourself, why not? Why wouldn't I do that? What is it seemingly giving me to not do that? What motivation does the ego have for not handing over your entire life to God? And at the very least, we can perhaps find this willingness to be fully willing, 100% willing to hand over our entire life to God, to really step back and let Him lead the way, to really live in this state of 100% trust, this state of 100% surrender, knowing that you don't have to do anything by yourself, knowing that Spirit has you every step of the way. You can lower your shoulders, you can relax your face, you can loosen your grip on the world. No more planning, no more doing, just this being done through, this effortless being done through. Being moved to speak when you need to speak, being moved to do when you need to do, but it's happening through you. This love of God is just happening through you. You don't have to do anything yourself. And what it takes for this to flow through you is trust, is this 100% trust that really and truly you're not alone here, that really and truly the Spirit has you, has your back every step of the way, not just some steps. Again, the Course is always teaching this all or nothing, 100% or nothing. It's either true or not true. 100% true or false. Darkness and light, they can't go next to each other. Where the light shines upon the darkness, it just instantly disappears. All things work together for good. So perhaps there's something from the past, or maybe something that's happening for you right now, that you find it hard to really accept that. And it's okay to feel whatever wants to be felt. This should not be used to spiritually bypass or to ignore the feelings that want to be felt and that want to come up. Maybe there's this openness already to go a little bit deeper. Can you see that even with this situation, all things work together for good and that there's no exceptions? And you don't have to see yet, you don't have to understand yet what this good is, what it is for, or you don't have to figure that out. Just see if you can open your mind to that. And of course, we can look back and see like, hey, but I really could have done that better. And you might feel guilty over something, or resentment towards someone else, like he really knew better, or it could have been different. And see if you can open your mind to the fact that, yeah, perhaps there was room for improvement, but not in that moment. Not in that moment. That moment happened exactly how it needed to happen. It couldn't have been any way different. All things work together for good, and there's no exception. So that improvement can happen right here, right now, by choosing right here, right now, for the Spirit's judgment, for love's judgment, for love's vision, for love's perception, for love's eyes to see, ears to hear. We can choose that right now. I think it's about time to go into our silent meditation. So just take this with you, and maybe you can sink into it deeper, see what else wants to come up, see where you're perhaps still making exceptions with this rule of all things work together for good, and just see if one by one you can just raise that to the surface and be open to have those grievances be replaced by miracles. Just see what wants to come up. Mm.
Open your eyes slowly and come back into the room. We have 12 minutes left for sharing your reflections and your questions. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand or use the reactions button at the bottom of the screen, and I'll invite you to take yourself off mute. And if you'd like to ask Neda a question or comment with confidentiality, put your message in the chat function at the bottom of the screen, and I'll read it out. Teresa.
Neda, thank you. Thank you so much. It's lovely to see you again. And I loved what you had to say. I had my eyes closed and your words were coming through like balm. So thank you so much. Thank you. And what you said, I made a few notes because I liked it so much. All things work together for good. And you know, sometimes it's not easy to see that. So thank you for the reminder. And it's also a wonderful reminder about trust. For me, that means that when I'm trying to get hold of the reins, my body is tight. So when I trust, I soften and open. And, you know, I also loved what you said. That you may look back and then find that there's room for improvement, but not in that moment. It was so accepting because I often get an image of something that I think, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that. You know, I wish I could have done that different. I wish I'd been more skilled, but I wasn't. And it was wonderful to hear you say that. And, you know, just recently I've had, sometimes there's just the general chatter, which is constant rubbish. But sometimes I have something to worry about and I like to fix it, sort it out, solve it. And I forget to hand it over. I forget to soften. And just recently, there's been, what my ego would like to say is there's been a few things that have come up and I've thought, how am I going to juggle all these things to worry about? And then when I get the softness, and I remember all things, what you just said, this is why it's so wonderful. All things work together for good. When I remember that, it's such a blessing. So thank you for the reminder. Thank you.
Who'd like to share? I'll jump in here. I just wanted to say thank you, Neda. That was a wonderful reminder that all things work together for good. I haven't had that thought come into my mind for quite a long time, and it's a beautiful thought. And there's a woman who runs Pathways of Light, and she's one of her favorite things when something goes wrong is she says, "I can hardly wait to see the good that comes from this," and that's a lovely way to turn it around um, and see the beauty that comes. And I often have noticed that when something goes wrong and I'm upset and annoyed, it's an opportunity to give it to Holy Spirit for healing. And so I just say, Holy Spirit, heal my fear-based thoughts. And then it dissolves and the fear is gone. And just recently we've had some noisy neighbors who made so much noise, and I was upset, and I gave it to Holy Spirit for healing, and it did go. And then another neighbor called up the authorities, and she dealt with it, and the noises stopped, and I built a beautiful relationship with this woman. And it's another wonderful gift that I didn't see coming. So yeah, I'm going to read that section. It's chapter 4, section 5, or chapter 5, if anybody wants to read it. And I'm done. Who'd like to share? Jim.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Dan.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot who I am.
Yes, thank you, Neda. That was wonderful. One phrase that stood out for me was "loose your grip on the world," because I have a tendency to do that. And at the time, it feels as though I'm under some pressure. But of course, it's not me being under pressure. It's my grip on the world that's causing the problem. And over the past few weeks, I've been seeing this more and surrendering, just giving things over, and how things run so much more smoothly and harmoniously when I just release my grip and hand over. And so that wonderful phrase, lose your grip on the world, I'll keep that in mind. It reminds me a bit about what you said about all things work together for good. Reminds me of something another teacher said over the weekend, which also struck me. He said, nothing negative can ever happen to you until you don't want it to be happening. And it goes very much with this all things work together for good. And as Teresa or Dan has just mentioned, there's this teacher also who says that she cannot wait for the good that's going to come out of this, whatever thing has come up that is disturbing. But all of these things work together for good, like your lovely phrase. So thank you for reminding us.
Dennis, take yourself off mute.
All things happen together for our good. Well, I didn't think so at the time. I thought, what have I done to deserve this? You must be running out things to try me. Now I look back, my main lesson in this to lifetime has been acceptance. And there's an awful lot of teaching in those words. To me, is making the illusion real, getting upset, really coming to inner peace. Thank you.
Norman.
Yes, thank you, Neda. What struck me about it was trust, which you mentioned, trust in God, and all things do come together for good, whether you understand them or not at the time. But if you put your trust in God, all things must come together for good. And that was a lovely reminder to just put my trust in God all the time, in everything. Sometimes I would forget, try and do it myself. And of course that never works. So thank you very much for that timely reminder for me. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, and even if we don't fully trust God, still all things work together for good. You know, we don't have the power to change that. Things always work together for good. It's just to experience that. It's when we really put our trust 100% in God, then we also feel that and we also experience it. But it's always true, no matter what we do, or who we put our trust in. It's always still true that all things work together for good. There are no exceptions. So I always also this other line goes with that, is that you can't do it wrong, you know, and that a happy outcome is certain. We really can't do it wrong. We can just make it easier for ourselves and enjoy this show we call life. But ultimately we can't do it wrong, because none of it, it's a journey without distance. So like we're already home. The Spirit is just inviting us to see that, like, hey, really, you don't have to worry about a thing. Really, you can put your trust in me. Really, you can hand over and let go. Really, you can step back and let me lead the way. You don't have to struggle and strive and work so hard. But still, even if we don't do all of those things, still all things work together for good. Still, salvation is certain, because it's already done. We just review this past that has already played out, and the Spirit is just inviting us, like, hey, just grab some popcorn and enjoy the show instead of screaming at the screen. And being so afraid of what we see there. Yeah, can't do it wrong.
Who'd like to share? Well, we've had a little more time to meditate, and we've come to the end of our time together. And thank you, Neda. That was wonderful. I've got such a gift. Bless you. And
Thank
thank you all for being here and sharing this time together. Show your appreciation to Neda.
Thank you, Neda.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Neda.
Thank you very much.
Neda, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you. It was very, very, very nice. Very